Good afternoon, everyone, and good afternoon, gents. We are back fresh from wildcarding and the tiresome international break. Adam, how are you, and what colour was your arrow in game week 8?
Yeah, do you know what? I'm excellent. I feel refreshed. I've been totally zoned out of football for pretty much 2 weeks, so it's been a good break. Um, I wild carded last game week. I don't. Do you know what? I don't actually know what color my arrow was. So can you?
Shall I enlighten
How
you, as
about
I
you
do every
enlighten
week?
me,
I
Fergie?
always ask you
You
what
do
colour. You're
every
like, I don't know. You had a nice green arrow, Adam. So you had 62 points, game week rank of 1.7 million, which nowadays is really good. But yeah, up to 1.6 million. I think you were like 2.3 or something along those lines. So pretty good. How did your wildcard go, and are you happy?
Yeah. The one thing I do know, yeah, I was happy. Um, in general, I think that the 50-50 decisions that I had pretty much evened out. So my team was I had Pope in goal, and I'd had the Newcastle double up of Pope and Trippier. I then had Cancelo and Nico Williams ended up making an appearance reluctantly. I was a bit short on funds. Um, and then I had Madison, Bowen, Saka, and Martinelli with Mitrovic, Haaland, and Kane. I think I would have been about 15, 16 points up on my what I would have done if I didn't wild card. So I think that's a good return. I'm happy with my team moving forwards. Touch wood, have got through the international break without any injuries. So
Lucky.
uh, all in all, fairly fairly positive. Um,
Yeah, I
yeah.
like your Bowen pick of no goals, no assists, and one shot on target all season. I think that's a really good
Oh
pick
well,
there, Adam.
do you know what? There was that spot where um he's got good fixtures for a while.
Almiron's got
And
better stats than Bowen.
hang on,
Adama
hang on. All
Traore's
right.
got better
Hang
stats
on.
than
I
Bowen.
actually thought he was quite unlucky against Everton. I thought they were. I mean, Maxwell Cornet should have scored at the end. It didn't even count as any XG created as assisted because
Yeah,
he totally fluffed it. I think everything. He pretty much had all of the chances for West Ham. There were a couple of near misses with crosses he put in. So we'll see on Bowen. I think he'll score sooner or later. There would
He'll
I
come.
think
It's due, and he's due. He'll come.
yeah, I think there's a lot of, and it was just a case. If it doesn't work out this week, I'll move him to
yeah,
Zaha. I
that
think
makes sense.
there were just a lot of nice midfielders in and around that point. I think the player that I nearly didn't go with, and I sort of changed my mind to bring the last minute was Madison. And it was just because of the case that I thought, well, he's done it against big teams before. And I'm going to find it hard not having him for the Nottingham
Yeah,
Forest
definitely.
fixtures. So, and I only had 4.3 million left. So I've gambled on James Justin and gambled that Leicester are going to have to tighten up. I mean, he got an assist as well. I think he's quite attacking.
He is.
So it wouldn't have been my preferred choice. I think Williams and Justin, I ideally wouldn't have gone with, but I was scrapping around for funds. So beggars couldn't be choosers in that case.
Nice start to wildcard, Adam. Nice green. That's what you want anyway. Rich, great to have you back. Fresh from holidays. How are you? And what colour was your arrow in game week 8?
Hi, everyone. Yes, very good. Very pleased with my wild card. Also wild carded in game week 8. I think I got 68,
Nice score.
which was a decent score. There was quite a lot of bunch scores last week, but I think my key differential there just got me that little bit higher was Tyrone Mings. I spent ages deliberating the fourth defender spot. I was back and forth. I think I tweeted out, the history of my transfers was just pinging around all over the place. And I think you were going to the game, Adam, and I texted you about 20 past 6 and said, is Mings nailed? Just to check, because he got dropped for the captaincy, didn't he? But he sort of think we might be in and out of the side. And you came
Do,
back to me with an affirmative, and so I just put him in at 6:21, and he got
I've got
9
to. Do you
points
know
for me.
what? I've got to. So on this,
Yeah.
so I didn't actually.
Yeah.
This was I missed this game because I'd agreed a date night with my wife. We were going to
Oh,
see Joe Lycett, and she wasn't in a great mood with me. I think we were both tired after work. We went out for dinner, And I did see your message pop up, and I thought, shit, I've got to respond to Rich, but we're out for dinner. So I did, I did a sort of go to the toilet job and just responded back to you. That's why it was very blunt to the point.
Yeah.
Team,
It was
Team
always-
Green
really
Arrow, I
went
like that.
up and
Team Green
beyond.
Arrow.
Team Green Arrow. I thought I'd get it back
Absolutely.
before the deadline. So
Absolutely, yeah. So that was great, and that was really obviously no one owned him. No one owned him hardly. It was 100% of his points count. So that was fantastic. And I went heavy on the 8 million midfielders myself. So Maddison, Foden, and who was the other? I've got 3 of them. I think. Well, Zaha. I bought in
Zaha's on your
Zaha,
bench,
so I wouldn't have. Yeah, just to bench him to carry him through because I just wanted to save that transfer and have him anyway.
Nice.
And obviously Maddison and Foden both came in with points. Foden was a bit of a cover pick for not having KDB for me because I went the Kane route and I thought I'll still go 3 City. And so went Foden and he popped up with a goal late on. So that all worked out. And so rank more than halved from 745k to 338k. So a really good week. And quite satisfied with that after 8 weeks. And I too at the moment seem to have dodged the injury list, which we'll get onto, I'm sure. But I've skated through the international break okay. And so it was always my plan to save this week. So hopefully I can.
I wildcarded. I had a decent-ish week too, 63 points. However, I caught a few of the injuries, so I was quite happy with the wildcard. It only would have gained me. I think it worked out because my 2 free transfers would have been Isaac and De Bruyne in anyway. So I think my wildcard only yielded me maybe, I think it was like 11 or 12 points, but got a lot of the players in place I wanted. I did bench Maddison. I put in Leon Bailey ahead of Maddison, which is frustrating. And this week, I'm still tempted to keep Bailey for a couple of weeks because they've got Leeds and Forest back to back, which are really nice fixtures. But Pope, Trippier, Cancelo, Luca Dean is one I brought in off the back of Adam's recommendation. But then obviously,
got injured.
Well, he got a bonus point, which was good. Got a clean sheet and then got injured. Andreas, I started him against Forest. What a strange game. Both Mitrovic and Pereira. Fulham scoring 3 goals, neither of them involved in any. Absolutely bizarre. De Bruyne, Martinelli, Bailey, Isaac, Haaland, Mitrovic. Benched Maddison, Emerson and Reece James. So for this week, looking okay. I'll probably leave Zaha this week. I'm probably going to have to shift on Isaac. I'm sure we'll touch on a certain Dominic Solanke soon. Seems to be the toast of social media at the moment in terms of a transfer in, but generally happy, I think.
Hang on a second.
Go on.
I've just got Dominic Solanke is the toast of social media. What has been going on?
If he's
You
not,
can't be serious.
I need
No,
to.
this is a wind up, isn't it?
I need to change my feed if it's not because it's his price. His price and fixtures. We'll talk about it more. I don't want to get into it now.
I heard Real Madrid are in for him, aren't they?
They are. We'll touch on 5.7 million with superb fixtures coming up. Probably the best.
If it's
the
about
best 4
price,
attacking fixtures you can have.
Well, Everson's 3.9 million. Great value, great price.
Everson.
I don't get it.
Okay, fair enough. Before we move on, let's say hello to those in the chat. Ross Johnson says triple captain Son last week. He said he hates talking about it though. What I mean, talk about a roller coaster of emotions. Benched to coming on to hat trick. That was absolutely unbelievable. Dread FPL, hello there, Dread. Great to see you. Jian Kalioski in as usual. Todd is in. I'm 1974 said a Solanke sweepstake is needed. How long until he's mentioned? It was all of 9 minutes. I'm 1974. Sparta scoped. Dan Megan. Hello, Dan. Wayne. Colin Johnston. Colin Buger. FPL Hazards. Dal says, is 277k overall rank any good? It is a very, very good start indeed. Phil Wright. Tevin McDavid asks about Vardy Punt. We'll touch on that a bit later as well. Paul Ryan asks what's happened to Fergie's glasses. Yeah, you can see I'm not wearing my glasses for the first time in years. I've started wearing lenses and they're much more comfortable, so I think I might stick with them. Mikael is in as well, and Daniel Robert, Paul Ryan, Colin Bugler. Welcome everyone, great to have you with us. Rich Pickens this week. We are going to talk about wildcard for Game Week 9 and also players we're targeting for the coming weeks. We will also look at the fixtures, international injuries, which second premium, Tony versus Solanke, and Rich is going to share a Wildcard 9 draft. But firstly, let's move on to the violin moments ahead of Game Week 9. And it's a bit of a different one this week. I haven't quite got over it yet. We haven't had many sent in at all around wildcard or transfer disasters for Game Week 8. But I do have the mother of all violin moments to share with everyone from a couple of weeks ago. As you hopefully all know by now, Micah Richards, the one and only, has become a brand ambassador and partner for Fantasy Football Hub. And Rich, Adam and I were incredibly fortunate to have some of his time to record a Green Arrow special with him 2 weeks ago. So it was on a Friday, about 13 days ago now. We posted it all over social media, YouTube, everywhere, saying, we've got Micah, we're going to chat with Micah. And we chatted with Micah for about an hour about all sorts, about football, about life, about FPL, about his time at Man City, his time at Aston Villa. Adam gave him a good kind of grilling over that. And we had amazing insight into what it was like, because Micah was actually on the bench on that Aguero goal moment on the title winning 2011-2012 season. So it was an absolutely magnificent chat. And we finished the recording, and I was absolutely buzzing to edit and publish it. Started listening back to my intro, and then to my absolute horror, it became apparent that Adam, Rich, and Micah's audio hadn't recorded, which left me, as you can imagine, absolutely devastated. If you've ever heard of the phrase stomach through your arse, that is exactly what happened to me in that moment. So I tried absolutely everything to recover it, to get it back. I even phoned Zoom. I was phoning everywhere, just trying to recover it, and I couldn't. So it was completely my fault. It was an oversight, a technical oversight on my part. It was a bit unlucky, I would add, but the fault lies with me. Over 250 videos and podcasts for the Hub. Only one of those 250 completely unusable, and it happens to be with Micah Richards. He's very keen to come on again, I would add. So hopefully when he gets the time, we can record it again properly. But that is the violin moment ahead of Game Week 9. Let's move on, gents, to Rich Pickens. So, Rich, firstly, some international break casualties. Do you want to talk us through what's been going on?
Yeah, quite a lot of people gone by the wayside who are popular in fantasy teams. Clearly, I think you've got on your slide, I think you've got a picture of who's at the front? Luca Dean, is it? Or you've got just read out the ones you've got on the slide to me.
We've got Robertson, Luca Dean, Isaac, Pickford, and Stones.
Yeah, so I think Isaac was very popular on Game Week 8 wild cards, and so if you went that option, then clearly I think you need to think about getting a replacement in. John Stones pulled up with a hamstring on England duty, but he's not quite as popular as some of the template picks. One or two that are missing from the slide that are notable, I think, is Nathan Patterson from Everton, very popular 4.0 defender, or 4.1 now. He's out for about 5 weeks.
He was stretching off, wasn't he?
Yeah, I think that wasn't looking great. I didn't see that game actually, but yeah, he's a no-go if you're on for budget players this week. And I'm hearing that Kulusevski might be a doubt as well for Tottenham based on today's press conference. Slightly better news, I think, on Jordan Pickford. I think he could be back this weekend. I think that was a press conference out earlier this afternoon. But yeah, if you've managed to get through the international break with nothing in your squads, then you've done pretty well. I think yourself, you've got a couple of casualties, haven't you, Fergie, on that list?
I've got Dino and Isaac. So yeah, I'm a bit disappointed there to catch two when it seems the majority haven't got any. So they're obvious transfers either to do this week or this week and next week. So a bit gutted with that. But I got points off both. So, every cloud and all that.
Yeah.
Opportunity for Solanke, though. You seem quite excited about that as well.
5.7
talking
million.
about Bowen,
Amazing fixtures.
talking about Bowen's stats, and then you can come into me with Solanke.
Solanke's got
Anyway.
more goals and assists than Bowen this season. But let's move on and take a
All
look.
right, that's how we're playing it. Okay.
And take a look at the fixtures then from game week 9 to game week 14. So top of the shop, Fulham, as we know, marvellous run of fixtures, followed by Crystal Palace, who also got superb ones. So everyone, all eyes on Zaha, all eyes on Mitrovic at the moment. Leicester's next 4, home to Forest, away to Bournemouth, home to Palace, home to Leeds. They're an interesting one because obviously Maddison is probably the standout player, but with those fixtures, could be tempted to, target him a little bit. I know you've got Justin in your wildcard team, Adam. 4th is Bournemouth. The next 4 fixtures, as we mentioned, home to Brentford, home to Leicester, away to Fulham, home to Southampton. Probably as good as they get, aside from Forest in those 4 there. So some really good fixtures. And West Ham's next 3, hence the Bowen pick. I'm taking it. Home to Wolves, home to Fulham, away to the Saints. Down the bottom, Man City at bottom, virtue of the blank in game week 12, but they have 2 really good fixtures coming up next. Home to Man United, home to Southampton, before they go away to Liverpool, blank, and Brighton. Brighton are down the bottom as well, as are Forest, Arsenal because of the blank as well. Interestingly, Liverpool is 6th on this list. This is an interesting one with Liverpool because I saw last week there were a lot of people moving away from Salah, either on wildcard or just transferring him out. The same for Trent. Whereas this week I'm seeing quite a lot of new transfers in, people wildcarding him in as well. I'm not really sure myself. I don't really get it. Home to Brighton could be an okay-ish fixture, but Haaland at home to United is going to be the standout captain for me. And away to Arsenal is going to be a tough game. That's not the game it's been in recent seasons. And they've obviously got Man City in game week 11. So I don't really get the Salah Trent thing personally. Don't get me wrong. They may score, they may return. But if you're not going to captain him, if you're not going to captain Salah in these next 3 or 4, I don't really get it. From game week 13 onwards, away to Forest, home to Leeds, they are spanking fixtures, so I thoroughly understand that. Just any thoughts on that, guys, on Salah? Because I'm seeing him being brought in back into a lot of teams.
Do you want me to go?
Yeah, you go first, Rich.
Yeah. I don't think it doesn't scare me not having him. For this week, I'm certainly not going to take a hit to get him back because there are so many other good options, and there's very, very little between them in those. We'll come on to talk about the premiums in a bit, but the alternatives are arguably just as good over the coming weeks. If you're on a wild card this week, then Salah's a safe pick to bring back now and not worry about it. And again, I do believe that if you're wild carding, you don't really want to store up transfers just to squeeze a little bit of fixture optimization out of someone. If you want Salah in your team again, and you're going to want to get immediate returns from that wild card to feel good about it, then there's nothing wrong with bringing him back this week and putting him in for Brighton. However, as you said, if you're going to captain him to try and get an edge on the Haaland herd, then he's much more attractive. If you're just going to bring him in and captain Haaland, I think you're better off waiting till game week 12. That's just my view.
I just don't really get why you would bring in Salah. So if you're not going to captain him when you've got De Bruyne, home to United, home to Southampton. I think they're perfect fixtures for De Bruyne when Salah's home to Brighton. So Liverpool haven't been playing well. Brighton have been playing well. Appreciate the change in manager. We're not sure how that's going to affect it. And away to Arsenal in game week 10. I know, like Arsenal, not defensively brilliant, but even if he gets a goal in each game, there, 13 million non-captain. I just don't see it personally. Adam, what do you think?
Yeah, well, I won't touch on the premiums because I think we're going to talk about them in a bit. But I understand it it sort of makes sense in terms of not using your transfers and setting up. And I'm interested actually to when we go and talk about this a little bit further, because I've got 2 plans going on, and one has Salah in and one doesn't. And I don't think, based on what we've seen so far, he is overpriced.
Absolutely.
But if you just looked at this season and forget everything else, and he's got tough fixtures. And if I was wildcarding this week, I would go De Bruyne or Kane. I wouldn't go Salah personally. I'm not saying I won't own Salah at any point, but that's how I would go, because I just don't think Liverpool have looked at it. And then Brighton, okay, they could do well in that game, but like you said, you won't captain him. And then you've got City and Arsenal, the top two in the league. Again, probably the two toughest fixtures on paper. So I think you can afford to wait.
Cool. Same, yeah. In terms of those teams at the top, obviously we've talked Mitrovic to death. We all know about Zaha. We all know about Maddison. Bournemouth, West Ham are up there as well. Newcastle as well. Are there any players that have come to light for you, Rich, in the next week? Maybe that I know you wildcarded last week, but if you were wildcarding this week, was there anyone else come on your radar that you think, oh, do you know what? Actually, I'm thinking about them players now.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think I've got a draft coming up later, but you could look at a different goalkeeper combination. There are a number of different goalkeepers. Pope was pretty much on 90% of wildcards last week. I'm not sure there's as much compelling reason to double up on Newcastle defence now. You could certainly look at saving a bit of money and coming down to some 4.5 options. Perhaps not in that that list of top teams. I mean, the Bournemouth keeper is worth considering, but again, you're really sort of thinking just a fixtures play because their fixtures are so good, but they're still bottom of the stats in terms of goals conceded and in terms of lack of attacking return. So there's not a compelling reason to bring in Bournemouth players there. I think as Adam mentioned, that Leicester have got a very good run now, and if they turn it around and maybe there is rumour that they might swap the keeper this weekend. I mean, I've got Everson on slight anticipation of that, but I'm not sure I'll play him yet. I think it'll just be a bit of a bonus that we've got a backup keeper for 3.9, won't it? So the keepers are certainly different on wildcard this week to last, but generally speaking, I think if you've kind of anticipated the game week 9 fixtures, there's not a great deal of difference. I mean, I think you mentioned before we went on air that Darwin Nunez is coming into the picture. He could be another forward option that we haven't seen in many wildcard drafts. Much cheaper than Salah, and a big differential to the template. So there's one or two out there that could make it in.
I think Daka has started the last two, and I was potentially interested in Daka as a short-term real. Like a differential point, because every time he plays, he seems to do well, and you can't beat these fixtures, right? So Home to Forest at the moment is the plum fixture, right? Every team is scoring a minimum of 2 goals against Forest at the moment, and then they go Bournemouth, Palace, and Leeds at home. So there's really strong fixtures there. Now he has pulled out of the Zambia squad, so it's a little bit uncertain there. I do like the look of Vardy. I was looking at the predicted minutes earlier for Vardy on Fantasy Football Hub, and it's down at the moment to 67 minutes. So it's got this. It calculates it as an average over a period, and because he started some and then not started some, it's roughly 67. But even coming in at 67 minutes, his predicted points is pretty decent. Do you think that? Vardy this kind of, I don't know, Vardy or Darwin price point potentially is something we're overlooking? Those who are going for Salah, we're talking about this third forward spot with either going for a 4.5, going for Solanke, going for Tony. I personally think they're all a little bit underwhelming. Maybe that Vardy Darwin spot would be good.
So for me, I think the problem is with the ones that you've mentioned, there's too many red flags against them. Vardy minutes, is he nailed? He's older. He's not hit the form of last season. So you're just going to be basing it on Vardy's history and the fact he's got some really good fixtures. I think Darwin similar, not similar in terms of that, but he's similar in terms of red flags there. Is it going to be him, Jota, Diaz? They've got Champions League. They've got a lot of fixtures coming up. They've got tough fixtures. And we've seen bits from him, but not enough for me to gamble on the wild card. It's a lot of money. Yeah. I think for me, one trend I think is going to happen. A lot of people have been excited about the forwards and how they've started the season. I see from now until the World Cup, it moving back into midfield and potentially defence. I think there'll be a lot of clean sheets for the big teams. I think as the games come thick and fast, they'll see out games. I think the midfield options, definitely sub 9 million, are more exciting than the striking options by far for me. Like the likes of Bowen, Foden, Saka. I think the likes of Mount could come back. Rashford, a player I really like at the moment, Sinistera, who a bit of a Hopta stat for you just to chuck in. I think in his last 306 minutes of football, he's got 5 goals and 1 assist. Got 3 goals for Colombia he only played 45 minutes each match.
Wow.
He is, and I looked at him going further back in 2022. He's got a goal or assist every 92 minutes. He looks on fire. So
they haven't played in September, have they, Leeds? I think the last game was about end of August or something.
Well, I'm hoping he'll save it for a week for obvious reasons. But if I was wildcarding, I think he's a more fun punt going 3-5-2 than Solanke. That would be the way that I would go, something like that.
Yeah, good point.
I think when you look at the forwards, and this is I think this is the reason I went for Kane, is there wasn't anybody that I was confident in. I think Kane, Mitrovic, Haaland, you can trust their talisman. They're going to get loads of goals and points. For me, there were doubts over the other forward options. I think you could go for a 4.5. The reason loads won't is because of that game week 12 and having the gap there. But I think if you went for a stronger defense, you could possibly get away with it. So yeah, I think of all the people that stand out, the funnest option for me is Sinistera. I think he'll do well over the coming between now and the World Cup.
I hope you don't mind me mentioning, Adam, but you did mention before we start just about a potential idea for game week 12. Which the more, you know, the more I'm looking at it and the fixtures, the more I'm liking it.
Okay, so if you wild card, and I think this works really well because I think based on what we've seen so far, the 2 best teams in the league are City and Arsenal, and I would say by some distance what we've seen. And if I look at their fixtures, I mean, you look at City's fixtures between now and game week 16, other than the Liverpool game, they're pretty good. And if you look at Arsenal's fixtures, again, I'd probably say the London derby, there's usually goals in it. And then the Liverpool game is, it's potentially a tough one, but they're leaking goals. You can get in behind them. So I think there could be a play where you triple up on Man City and Liverpool, which will put you in a very strong position in game week 13.
You're talking about Arsenal, sorry. Arsenal, Liverpool.
Sorry to say Liverpool. Yeah. I meant Arsenal. You are correct there. So you triple up on Man City and Arsenal. Yeah. It'll put you in a strong position between now and game week 11. Because I think they'll score goals. I think they'll get in behind Liverpool. And I think they've got that. And I think it'll put you in a very strong position game week 13 onwards. And free hit in game week 12, and that way you can have Salah, you can have triple Liverpool, which will probably be an advantage because very few people will go that way. And whilst the fixtures aren't great in game week 12, which that's probably the concern for me is the upside fixtures, because you look at them. I mean, arguably the best is Liverpool versus West Ham in terms of big teams, and you think there probably isn't going to be a huge. You don't see that as a huge haul potential game. So that would be the only reason that I'd be maybe not do it. But it then does mean you can use the Haaland money, which most people will keep Haaland. So it could be a way of getting an advantage on people. So the downside is we don't know when further down the line what the opportunity cost is with the free hit. But I think it's a viable strategy to gain on people at the moment.
I suppose an interesting question there, because a lot of people are going for game week 12. You have this, how many can I get out? And a lot of people will probably have, I don't know, maybe 9 or 10 players using a transfer to transfer out good players like Haaland, like Cancelo, potentially Jesus, Martinelli, Ramsdale maybe, using transfers to do that just to scrape out 8 or 9 players, which are not an optimal 8 or 9 in the slightest. I think it's fair to add as well. It'll be like, your Andreas Pereiras and players like that. So it'll just be an 8 or 9. I suppose if you did get, I don't know, let's just say a 20 or 30 point boost now this side of the World Cup, would you rather, I suppose I'll ask you first Adam, only because you think, would you rather go into the international break at 100k with no free hit? into the World Cup
Yeah.
now, or would you rather go into the World Cup at like 700 or 800k with your free hit in hand? Because I think I know what I would rather.
It'll probably be 100k.
Yeah, I mean, the example you've mentioned, I mean, and also it depends on the a number of factors there, like how far 800k is behind 100k, and so it is all relative. I think that if I was going to have done this strategy, I would have probably gone with at least an Arsenal defender or a third Arsenal as well to take to maximise on Brentford. But then again, I look at it. I mean, Kane's got I think he's got Man United away, isn't he, in game week 12? So it could, and it also means I could go on. You could go on Man City. For potentially for the Southampton game, which could be quite big. It's a really good point. I think people are fearful of the double game weeks.
But let's not forget that we've got the additional wild card this year in the World Cup, which we haven't normally got. And I think that for me is quite a big point, is that we can play the second wild card potentially a lot. You know, I know a lot of players hold on until wherever 33, 34 to kind of maximise it and things, but I think this year is a bit unique in terms of that, and also it also means that then when you're going back in game week 13, people are using their transfers to get, say, Haaland back in or Cancelo back in. You're already moving ahead of those, aren't you? Because you're already looking ahead to the next lot. So
I suppose the question is, what is a free hit worth points wise? What are you looking to get from it? And we've had these conversations pre-season.
If you get like a 20, 30 point boost, which I don't think is out of the realms possible. Like at Leicester at home to Leeds, right? So if Leicester do turn a corner, which you have to expect them to, right? And and Leicester do a bit of a job on Leeds. Newcastle home to Everton. There's other half decent fixtures in there as well. Chelsea away to Brentford, could be some things there. These are teams which a lot of FPL managers may have one of, but they're not going to have two or three. They're not going to be able to really target these fixtures, are they? So, what do you think, Rich?
Yeah, interesting play. I think there's some upside in using it. I think there is not quite sure of the sequence of weeks, but I think we are going to get a very difficult sequence of game weeks around game week sort of 28 to 31 or something that are going to be difficult to navigate with cup games and blanks and so on. That actually I think with it not being a double game week or anything, I've set up okay to navigate game week 12. I get the point about being back there. I like the revert with 6 Arsenal and City players for the last 4 games. I think that would be a nice way to kick on, because the value would then come over the games to follow as well as in the game week 12 itself. So it could be worth a lot more than 20 points in the week. It's just that additional transfer flexibility it gives you up to the World Cup. So it's definitely a viable play, but I don't think I'll be doing it myself. And to Adam's point, you needed to almost be sure you were going that way so you could wild card with a slightly different team. So but good call out. I mean, it's definitely an option, and particularly if you are languishing down the ranks, and there are many of our community that are. It's a good way to get back in the game.
And it might help you maximise between now and game week 16. It could really help you maximise that.
Yeah, I agree.
And give you the push up. But I think you can only really do it if you do it properly, if you commit to that strategy. Yeah. So I feel that I've probably, even though I've got 2 Arsenal, 2 City, I've got ways of managing game week 12. I don't think if I'd have done it, I maybe would have had Foden, maybe would have had Saliba or Gabriel, De Bruyne, etc. So yeah, I think I would have had to have committed to it properly.
I still think,
which I didn't do.
I still think maybe bringing in, we talk about this third striker spot. Bringing in Jesus in game week 11 may seem mad, for those who don't have him already. But the next 2 games, Spurs and Liverpool, are going to be tough. After that, they go Leeds, blank, Southampton, Nottingham Forest. That could be that that could be a nice move in game week 11 as well. And not a nice, really against the grain move, because that would be massive against the grain, right? Because
it will.
no one in their right mind will bring him in with a blank in 12.
I think with Gabriel Jesus, the one thing on my mind is he's one yellow card
off a ban.
That's fair. And the
Suspension.
way
Imagine
he's
if
playing,
suspended for that week.
yeah. It's the way he's playing though. He's I know you've got sort of what people said about Diego Costa many years ago, but the way he's playing and his work rate, he's getting in tussles with defenders. You feel like he's going to pick up yellow cards. So, and the sort of yellow cards which aren't necessarily petulance, they're just from being a bit of a nuisance to defenders. So, yeah, I think I'm in a double Arsenal attack anyway, so I think I can hold off Gabriel Jesus at the moment.
And finally, I suppose the final option is the kind of later wild card. So for those who haven't wild carded already, potentially dead ending into game week 12, taking out your City your City and Arsenal players in 12, and then wild carding them back in 13. There will be teams the way they are set up that could probably do that quite comfortably, but I do think there are a lot of players with a lot of upside now that non-wildcard won't have in their teams. For example, like Mitrovic plus Zaha plus Maddison, for example, is quite hard to get to if you haven't wildcarded, I think, as well as the kind of everyone around them. So I don't think it's worth holding on pitch just for the sake of one fixture miss.
Yeah,
I'd get it done early. Rich, what do you think?
Yeah, well, I think as well, it's all very well saying, get rid of, start offloading your City and Arsenal players now, but several key ones like Haaland and Martinelli and to an extent Cancelo, people, they've gone up in value. So if you're going to offload them for 1 week and then wildcard them back in, you'll be paying an extra, 1.5 million for getting the same guys back again, that you want for the rest of the season. So I don't really think about offloading them all. You'll probably still need to bench some of them in game week 12 just to retain the value. So I think it's the only other option. If you haven't wild carded last week or this, I think game week 13 is the other time to use it. And I think I can't remember who said it, but otherwise you might as well just use the wild card as a free hit in game week 16 before the World Cup, because that's just otherwise you're going to have to put it in the bin. So game week 13
you got a wild card now.
Probably.
I think
so.
if you haven't already, game week 9 is a good spot with the fixture swings for certain teams, I think.
Yeah, and it's not too late if you haven't hit the button, because for some reason they seem to have frozen the transfer markets, and none of the real markets have gone haywire in the UK, but the FPL markets,
the markets that matter like FPL are stagnant.
Maybe that's what we need, like an FPL chancellor, just to come in and do a budget.
Love that.
Cause some chaos in the market.
Yeah, exactly.
So a big question for those on wildcard and those not on wildcard actually is which second premium. So Haaland looks to be absolutely nailed captaincy nearly every week for the foreseeable with the incredible form he's in. But there are 4 premiums. I've only got 3 pictured here: De Bruyne, Kane, Salah. Obviously Son after last week as well. You could maybe even chuck Sterling into that mix as well. It's which second premium, and we touched on Salah earlier, so we don't need to talk about him again. I'm pretty pro De Bruyne for the next 2. Again, just form fixtures at home. As Adam has mentioned a few times, his returns at the Etihad are absolutely superb. Kane, I think, could do okay, but obviously because De Bruyne is a midfielder and he's excellent on bonus, he just for me he has that edge. Son is, after last week, obviously people are looking at him a lot differently now than they were. He actually came out top in last week's projected points. So when he was benched, I was like, oh goodness, like Hub's projected points has Son top, and he actually finished top, which is absolutely incredible. I think my incredibly loose plan, and this is obviously it may change, but hold De Bruyne for the next 2 through game week 9, game week 10. Potentially move to Son potentially in game week 11 when they go home to Everton, and De Bruyne goes away to Liverpool, even though Liverpool's defence is not great at the moment. And then potentially onto Salah in 12 if I don't free hit, because Salah's fixtures in 13 and 14 are absolutely superb. That's my incredibly loose plan on those. Rich, what are your thoughts on second premiums at the moment?
Yeah, I think it's you can't really go wrong with any one of those, assuming everyone's got Haaland in his keeping. There's very little between them. I think the first point to make is whichever one you're on now, it's probably not worth hitting to the other one.
Yeah.
In terms of taking a -4, and if you have to move, off the forward position to the mids, or i.e., I've got Kane at the moment. I'm quite happy to keep him. I'm not going to move for a Salah or a KDB. Certainly not for a hit this week. If you're wildcarding, I've been doing quite a few reviews for people, and I've been liking Son as a bit of a differential on a wild card, for the next few. I know the fixtures are not ideal, but you can sort the captain for game 11 on the wild card this week, and you've got an opportunity with the wild card to have Son before most of the world has got him. He's just got a hat trick in 13 minutes or something on last week. He's obviously going to start. I saw a Conte interview earlier saying that he was being asked about whether Sonny's going to be on set pieces and free kicks, and there was some radio analysis about Kane, who often takes charge of those free kicks, those direct free kicks, being absolute rubbish at them. He always puts it into the wall or over the bar.
He scored one years ago to win a game late
a long
on.
time ago though.
It was like his debut season, and ever since then he seems to have stepped up, kind of like Ronaldo.
So I think Sonny could be getting on free kicks, as I think he scored a nice one for Korea in the national break. So I like Sonny just as a differential, and there's not much in it between him and KDB. But equally, if you go Salah or you go KDB, there's nothing really wrong with those picks either, particularly with the form that KDB is on, or the fixtures in this week and in game week 12 for Salah. So you've got to remember Salah's been doing this for 4 or 5 years now, and if he gets a brace on on the weekend, no one's going to be surprised, are they? So I don't think you can really go wrong with anyone. But if I was on wildcard, I'd pick Son. I think if I had one already, I would just stick with it. I wouldn't change it this week.
Adam, what's your thinking?
Yeah, interesting. So I think for a long period of time, and I'm looking back to maybe the midpoint of last season. So if I look back at game week 20 onwards, I think that Kane, Son, and De Bruyne have been ahead of Salah by some distance, especially in actual points. I think they're all pretty close in terms of actual points. They're all verging around the 200 mark over that time frame. So what's that about? 27, 28 matches. Salah is well down. I think he's around about the 135 point mark. So I think it's going for one of those. I think it's then looking at combinations for me. So I don't like the forward options, and I said this earlier. And I can rule them out for several different reasons, because it's about combinations. So effectively, Kane's 11.4 million. So you could have Kane and an 8 million midfielder, or Salah and a 7 million striker. And if I look at all the options, I don't like Tony, purely because Brentford, you're not going to want to swap them around. They've got 3 fixtures against the big boys, which means 3-5-2. So, and he's not as effective in a 3-5-2. I don't like Watkins. I do like Watkins, but from an FPL point of view, Villa are just not creating enough. Solanke, Bournemouth are creating half an XG a match. So if Bournemouth score and it's not Solanke, you got to wait a game and a half and just hope he's involved in the next. No, he's not for me.
Fantasy football is about looking forward, not back, Adam, don't you?
Yeah, it is, but they're not creating enough. And if you look at the team, and I think everyone will be targeting that fixture. I think they'll be keeping it tight as well. So, yeah, he's not for me anyway. Okay. Wilson's too injury prone. You've then got, the best one, the only one I thought, well, possibly, and it's a bit is Neil Maupay, and I'm not going there. So I think for me, it's looking at combinations. Whereas if you look at Kane, you can have Zaha, Maddison, Saka, Foden. I think Mount will be a bit resurgent, particularly after the goal for England. There seems more exciting options that way for me. Mm-hmm. So Rashford, Sinistera. There's some good options in midfield for me. And I think that's where the points are going. I think in isolation, I don't think there'll be much between Kane, De Bruyne, Salah, and Son. I really don't.
No.
So, and because you're not going to captain them, or you're unlikely to captain them, I don't think it matters. It's looking at the combination of what you can get. So I would say don't judge them by themselves. Look at the 2 or 3 players that you can get with them,
or just pick the one you like and pick the one that you just fancy. Never mind what everybody else says, because you're talking about maybe 1 or 2 different points either way, and nobody knows who's going to win that over the next 4. I mean, I know that sounds terribly unscientific, but if you favour a player, then just pick him. I mean.
I just
honestly, because they are premiums for a reason. That's because they perform consistently.
I've got to say, I'm quite surprised. I'm quite bullish on De Bruyne over this next 2. I think De Bruyne could outscore Salah and Son quite significantly over the next 2 I'm talking about now. And then it could be a difference. But I wouldn't be surprised if De Bruyne scored a goal in both of the next few matches. We know he's amazing on bonus. We know he's on corners and free kicks. We know he'll probably get an assist as well. Whereas Salah and Liverpool's form for me is a real concern. And Son, don't get me wrong, he's obviously back, but before that he hadn't handled anything. So I'm quite bullish on De Bruyne for the next 2 and then moving on. But it's good. It's good to hear guys' views on that.
De Bruyne is out. He's 12.3 million now. He's scored 1 goal this season. Yeah. So despite most people agreeing he's probably the best player in the Premier League. You often hear that said about De Bruyne. He doesn't score as many goals as the other 4 guys in this conversation.
Yeah.
So for that reason, I normally would go for someone who scores more goals.
Fair enough.
For me, I think just looking at Kane, I think De Bruyne has been excellent, but the goal scoring hasn't quite been there since Haaland's come in. I think he'll do well. But looking at Kane, over the last, let me see if I can get this right. So over the last 29 matches for Spurs, he's got 20 goals, 12 assists, which is just phenomenal. And I just think he's a good captain. We said about not looking at captaincy option, but he's a good captaincy option for the is it game week 11 when they play
Everton at home?
Yeah, and I genuinely don't think there's much between them in isolation, and that's why I'm trying to take the conversation into, well, let's look at what partnerships you'd have with them. So is it like Kane and Foden, or is it Salah and Tony, for example? And you can probably, if you might even take it over 3 positions with a defender if you spread in, but I think that's how you've got to look at them, particularly where the captaincy isn't as important, because the reality is we'll probably just captain Haaland. I think you can even captain Haaland against Liverpool as well.
Yeah,
so
at the moment.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking at the moment.
Okay, so on the 3rd striker spot, looking at potential Isaac replacements. Obviously, Isaac was really popular last week. And if you are looking at that 3rd striker spot on Wildcard, there's been a bit of debate this week around Solanke with his fixtures, 5.7. Tony's been popular as well. We've currently got a head-to-head on screen with their stats. It's not really pretty reading for Solanke, as you mentioned earlier. 5 appearances, 1 goal and 1 assist, which is more than Bowen's managed. He's had 8 shots, 5 on target, 5 in the box, an XG of 0.8, an XA of 0.6. No big chances, 1 big chance created and 1 key pass. It's not pretty reading, especially when you put him side to side against Tony, though Tony's is probably exaggerated by that 1 game where he scored the hat-trick. Adam, what's your thing at the moment on this 3rd, troublesome 3rd striker spot? Obviously, Haaland and Mitrovic are incredibly popular. Kane is obviously a good pick. If you can't get to Kane, who else are you thinking of?
For me, it's either Kane or 4.5 million.
Right, okay.
That's what I would do. And to get round the challenges, I would upgrade my defence and midfield. So I wouldn't have Pereira, for example. I'd probably go 3-5-2. That's the way I would go, because I even think the likes of Rashford, you've got tough fixtures, but counter-attacking style could suit them. Sancho could be good. There's so many good midfield options that I think are going to explode. over that, particularly that sub 9 million category. If you can stretch maybe up to the likes of Sterling, Bruno as well, I think there's some options there.
Agree.
So for me, I would go 3-5-2 with a really good fourth defender if you can afford it. Because I think that way, like I said, I don't really like any of the striking options other than Kane, and that's really what in Wildcard. When I was on Wildcard, I wasn't bought into Isaac. That's why I went Kane, and it wasn't because I really wanted De Bruyne, but I couldn't make all of them work, unfortunately. So I think I would either go to a 4. I'd write off the spot like a lot of people do at the start of the season, or I'd go Kane. That's what I would do. I know loads will go Solanke. I get the reasons. I get the fixture. Look, the reasons for Solanke is the fixtures are good. That's it. I mean, I did see one post earlier preparing for the pod when, and some of the pros were he's going to play 90 minutes. I think they also said he's a peak age. I mean, as soon as you put in he's a peak age, peak age.
He's got lovely hair as well.
Yeah. Like, as soon as you put in peak age, I talk about clutching at straws. I mean, like
peak age.
It's just like I think he's got great. In fairness to Solanke, he's got good pedigree. He's got a really good goal scoring record all through the England youth levels. He did well last season, but in the Premier League he hasn't done it yet. There's no evidence. I think he's got like 5 Premier League goals in his career, and it's more I don't trust Bournemouth. They're not creating anything.
I think there's an argument against the non-Premier League pedigree in terms of Mitrovic, right? So saying this, we were all saying the same thing about Mitrovic in pre-season. We said the same thing about Ivan Toney last season. We were talking a couple of seasons ago was the other one, Ollie Watkins. That they've never done it. But if he was 7 million, even 6.5 million, I don't think he'd be in the conversation. I think for me, it's the fact he's 5.7 million, perfect fixture run, 90 minutes on penalties. He's going to get chances, and he only needs, as we've said many times, you only need one chance, you only need one penalty to get 8 or 9 points in this game. So I personally think I'm not sure whether I'll go for him or not, but I can see the appeal, I suppose, is what I'm saying.
I think there's a reasonable case for him as an enabler. I just don't. There's obviously the trend is get money out of the defence, go 3 up top. Strikers are obviously the year of the striker, that kind of thing. So, and you're on Wildcard, you think, okay, wow, he's a cheap on penalties striker for 5.7 with 8 with great fixtures and peak age up to the World Cup. What more could you want for 5.7? Well, you could have Perisic in the defence again for 5.7. You could literally put that money back into you could have Reece James and Trent in your defence. If you reorganise that way and go for the dud, go as Archer's 4.4 or 4.3, isn't he? I mean, you can go below 4.5. So you can revert. It's only because we've just all shifted from that dud striker away from it that Solanke is now in the conversation. But he is, if you think of him as an enabler and you have put a flexible enough formation in that you can sometimes play 3-5-2 or sometimes play 4-4-2, but sometimes play him in the favourable fixtures, then I think it's a reasonable thing to do. Certainly, if you look at the 8 fixtures, the better ones are in the next 4 rather than the last 4. So you'd probably be happier giving him the next 4 to play and then maybe think about benching him or ditching him. For me, he's a bit of a lever off Kane to Salah in game week 12 because he has got a nice. What's games he got in game week 12?
I think he's home to Southampton, I want to say.
Yeah. So you'd be happy to play him in that fixture when you're trying to get 11 out, wouldn't you? So
I looked at if I was doing in my Salah in game week 12, which I'm not committed to. I looked at Neil Maupay for that because I thought particularly the fixtures going forward were better for him.
Yeah.
I don't particularly love that with the threat of Dominic Calvert-Lewin, although saying that he's injury prone as well, and maybe he's made the spot his own because he's done quite well, I think, since going to Everton. Yeah, I understand why people are saying him because of the price, but I just don't see Bournemouth scoring many goals, and I actually think there'll be clean sheets for the teams that they're team sheets that they're playing.
That's fair. Hard to argue.
And and it's just, I think if you shift formation in particular, you can get away with it. So writing off that spot, you can go for your extra wing back. You can go for that extra, maybe stretch up to a 6 million midfielder. So I think that if you do that, it's fine. And that's probably what I would do if I didn't have Kane.
Yeah. Cool. We've got the hub predicted points up now from game week 9 to 11, just to help us. Haven't put 12 in there, obviously, because it skews because of the blank. But Haaland is top, 21.6. Obviously Haaland at the moment is a bit of a must-have given his form, and his fixtures are pretty good. 2 at home next. De Bruyne second, 19.4. Son at 18. Kane 17.7. Foden 16.1. Salah 15.8. James is there. Fernandes, Bruno, interestingly, for a United, and Sterling, Mitrovic, Cancelo. Bowen is in there just ahead of Maddison, actually, for the next 3 fixtures, even though I think if you did it for the next 2, Maddison will come out on top. But Trent, Zaha, Wilson, who's going to be hopefully back from injury as well. Solanke is in his 18th place, 13 points. Saka and Vardy. So in terms of a wildcard draft, we've been talking wildcards now for quite a while. Rich, you've got a draft to share with us first. Firstly, Adam, if you were on wildcard now, so you say you go 2 up front by the sounds of it, potentially, maybe 3-5-2. Who would be the 1 or 2 players you would have kind of nailed in your team at the moment for wildcard?
Haaland and Mitrovic would be the easiest decision.
Yeah.
To make, and it would just be whether I'd go Kane or whether I'd go 4.3. I think you go as low as 4.3, can't you?
Yeah.
I think it's then a choice between Son and De Bruyne, and there's not much in it, if I'm being honest. I think the players that I like, if I was going 3-5-2, I really do like as a punt Sinistera. I think he looks exciting, and I think Leeds, the way they play, I don't think the fixtures matter too much. I think they can get something. My only worry with him is minutes, and has he had enough minutes to start playing, 80, 90 minutes a game? Who else do I like? I think Maddison looked brilliant against Spurs. He would, without a shadow of a doubt, be in there. I think Zaha would be in there. Maybe not for this week, but I think I'd probably have him in for the up and coming games. And I think there's I'd then have a look at a couple of other 8 million midfielders where I think there's some fun to be had there. So I think I like Saka. I think Saka's looked really good. I think he's excellent for England as well. Foden, I think, is a good option. I'm expecting to see more from the likes of Mount as well. So I think that's probably the way I would go. And then at the back, I think you definitely want some City defence. I think we'll see a spell of clean sheets for City coming up. Reece James. And then I probably wouldn't double Newcastle, but it's not the end of the world. So that would be sort of way I would go, I think.
Just interesting stat quickly from FPL Scoped. United have scored in their last 6 visits to the Etihad. That's interesting. Rich, hope Adam hasn't stolen too much of your thunder there, but do you want to share the wildcard squad you have picked out for game week 9?
Okay. Is it on screen?
It is.
Okay. All right. So this is a pretty, for someone looking for a quick wildcard who just wants a safe template setup. I'll let Adam tear it to pieces in a minute, but basically, based on some of the conversations we've already had, I've changed the goalkeeper combination from the wild card last week. So I put in the 2 Everton keepers as a son and heir type combination. I did this before I heard the press conference. So, now I might have a rethink. I think, well, if Pickford's coming back, do I really want to go for that kind of cover pick there? Because Begovic played well, kept a clean sheet against West Ham, and obviously with Pickford coming back, Everton do have nice fixtures, but they do only have 3 at home out of 8.
Wow.
So perhaps you can look at a different keeper who has 5 at home out of the next 8. There are several of them out there. So Raya or the Gaeta of Palace are two popular picks. But I don't think I'd have the Bournemouth. I know Raya's Brentford, isn't he? So yeah, Brentford have got sort of mixed fixtures now, and so on. So but you can go for a cheaper goalkeeper combination. There's nothing wrong with going Pope if you still fancy Pope, but he is 5.2 now. And when you're wildcard, you'll probably find that 0.7 comes in a lot handier some of the other combinations, particularly if you want Salah. So in the midfield, kept Martinelli just because I don't want to buy him back for 6.6. Sorry, I'll go through the defense in a minute. But yeah, Zaha's in, Maddison is in. And this draft, I've got Salah, but you've heard already that there's very little to choose between them. I just like the idea of having someone in that premium midfield position. So either Son, KDB or Salah. I put Salah in just because I think it's just difficult to not get him back in when you don't have to make transfers to do it. And so I put him in, kept Andreas, and then up front I have got Solanke in this as the third forward, just purely to enable the funds to pay for the rest of the team. Mitrovic and Haaland are lock-ins, and in the defence, that almost picks itself again. Trippier, Cancelo, James is the three. There isn't really an alternative to Neco Williams now in the 4 million slot because Emerson Palmieri didn't play against Everton, so he's obviously a rotation risk with Cresswell in the team. Patterson's out for 5 weeks, so Nico really gets the slot. And then I went for Mark Guehi, who has an excellent fixture in game week 12, and that's probably the only game he'll start for this wildcard team. I would have had him in last week instead of Mings, but he didn't have a game, so I had to go somewhere else on that one. But now, if you're wildcarding this week, a Palace defender there looks a good pick to ride out game week 12. So that's it really. I would still probably chop and change it. Probably least sure about the keepers and the Salah position based on the combination. I like what Adam was saying actually about Sinisterra. I hadn't really considered him because I just haven't seen him play much. Yeah. I just it's so long since I've seen a Leeds game. It feels like last season. It isn't really, I know, but it's like August it was hot when Sinisterra last played. I mean, it's winter's here now. We're gonna have to turn the heating on in a minute.
What about
God help us?
No one's mentioned Rashford yet. I know he may have a knock this week. Ahead of this, I don't believe he's trained, and obviously he's at the Etihad. But he was obviously the talk of the town a couple of weeks earlier, and people were, including myself, were thinking of bringing him in ahead of Leeds. He hasn't crossed our lips yet in the last hour. Is he someone either of you consider for a wild card?
I'm pretty sure I mentioned Rashford actually.
Okay.
We can check if you've been recording. We can go back and check, can't we?
So dagger to the heart.
No, I actually think he's a good option. I think particularly at his price, and I think so potentially is the likes of Sancho as well. I think although the tough fixtures, they may suit United a little bit more.
And particularly Rashford.
Yeah, and particularly Rashford as well. Yeah, exactly. We saw what he did at Arsenal, which is probably the toughest fixture they've had so far. And against Liverpool. Yeah. So he's 2 real tough fixtures. He's done okay. And I think I remember it was a couple of seasons ago at the Etihad, he had a really, really good game, getting in behind, etc. So yeah, I think he's a good option. I think I would prefer Rashford over any of the strikers that we've mentioned below 8 million at the moment.
I think it's probably on wildcard though. It's probably the City fixture plus the fact that he's been reported, that he's unlikely to play. Yeah. That's going to put people off getting him, isn't it? And you could get him and bench him, I suppose, because you'd probably be able to pick a good enough team. But it might mean you have to, play Zaha against Chelsea or do something a little bit different.
Well,
he's certainly a good option.
It could be a good shift along from if obviously Leicester got a couple of good fixtures now, but if Leicester still not in the races, Maddison just drops off form. It's an easy shift down from Maddison. Maybe same for Zaha, maybe Martinelli for the blank for game week 12. He's a nice price for that, and we've got a lot of players around that price point.
Yeah. That's why I really like the midfielders at the moment. Yeah. I feel like because I've having Kane at the moment, I've got two options: Salah or no Salah further down the line, and I really like using my transfers on the midfielders, the likes of Zaha, maybe Sinisterra, Rashford. Yeah. I think there's some really good options there. Bringing Arsenal back in, taking them out, etc. I think the thing that would be quite interesting. I want to ask Rich this. What's your plan? So are you 100% committed to bringing Salah in? Is it game week 12? Or, so let's say he maybe gets a goal against Brighton, doesn't look great in the other 2 matches. Are you committed to going down that route? Or is it a case you would, you've got an alternative plan and would maybe stay away, because he will be highly captained in game week 12.
No, I'm not committed to it at all. I actually, when you see my bus team in a minute, I'm really happy. I prefer it to the wildcard team. I prefer it, to some of the wildcard teams I've seen. So I think my team's in really good shape. Fingers crossed, and I might keep Kane all the way through to the World Cup. I might keep him in that position if he goes well in the next 2 or 3. I'm definitely going to captain him in game week 11. That's why I did the move. And then, I might just go off Foden so I'm going to cover the game week 12 with Luis Diaz or something like that. And again, he's another option in the sort of 8 million midfielder slot, and just make a transfer out of, because I've got Foden and I can just lose him for that blank, and then maybe get De Bruyne in afterwards for the running. So I could just do it that. But, for the time being, I'm not definitely getting Salah back, but it would be nice to sort of have a look at him over the next 2 or 3 and then decide, have Liverpool got their mojo back? Have they started to play well? Has he started to play differently? Because he's still scoring points, and he's creating chances rather than being, the goal hanger, if you like, or the goal hogger. So I'm just watching him at the moment, and I think I'll probably get him back, but not definitely.
So what's a bigger factor for you? So you've obviously got the Salah pull side of getting Salah. What about if him and Kane are both looking good? So Kane's on form, and are you the sort of person that would ditch Kane for Salah, or if Kane is doing the business, let's say he scores every game from now till game week 12, keep him.
I'd keep him. I'd definitely like, if you look after game week 12, you look at the running, all the top teams have got good fixtures again. Tottenham's fixtures are fine. I wouldn't ditch him. People will be moving to him, and there are other options in. Foden's fine again. If Foden's going well, I won't lose him. But I got him in as a bit of a cover pick for not having De Bruyne, and I got away with it last week. I think Kane and Foden got 18, and De Bruyne and Isak, which was the other combination, got 19. So it was like there's virtually nothing in it. Whether that will continue and De Bruyne edges ahead over the next couple, based on what you said, Fergie, that's probably likely. But Isak got injured, didn't he? So there's a transfer being spent there to replace him.
That's now going to be De Bruyne and Solanke, sadly.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, but no, I'm not definite on Salah, and I'm not scared either. That's the thing. I've hidden behind the sofa when I haven't owned Salah before, and I don't feel that way going into Brighton.
And if you remember right at the start of the season when Darwin was fit, how Salah was playing, he's very, very wide, if you remember. I know he got some points, but he was, I think we all commented observationally on watching him just not getting in the same positions he was in last season. And his confidence will have taken a knock as well. I know he scored for Egypt, but he just hasn't looked, he hasn't looked the same all season yet, has he? And neither of Liverpool. I think this is the point: is Liverpool haven't looked great. They look really good against Bournemouth, which is not that hard. But other than that, they just haven't looked the same team, have they? Shipping goals, not scoring goals. Salah staying out wide. Let's have a look at the captaincy ahead of game week 9. This part of the pod is becoming a bit of a waste of time at the moment. But just quickly, predicted points: Haaland top 7.7. He's top of the polls, 59% of the polls. Just quickly, odds checker: Haaland is 8-13 on to score any time. Salah 6-5. Vardy, interestingly, against Forest 6-5, and Darwin Núñez 5-4. So they're the 4 top favourites according to the bookies. Is there any argument to go away from Haaland? Rich, come to you first.
Not for me. I don't really think that the United fixture, although it's a derby, I think City are clearly a better side. I think they'll still put 2 or 3 past United. So bound to be some involvement for Haaland there. I'm quite happy to captain him. Haven't really considered. I mean, if you're pushing and you want to, if you're down, in the millions of ranks still, and you want to move differently, Salah is a good alternative this week at home to Brighton. If you're bringing him in on a wild card, he could still get a brace, couldn't he? Absolutely could. And it's that kind of move that will get you up the rankings. If you just stick with the peloton and go Haaland, then you won't get any gain. So, but for me, I'm still sticking with the Norseman.
Adam, it's easy for me. I think just looking at it, I think he's just so far ahead of everybody else. Haaland, most big chances by far. I think he's returned, even in the Champions. He's returned in every single game for City, hasn't he? That's how outrageous it is. And he wasn't even brilliant against Wolves.
It was even a disappointment. He only got the one goal, wasn't it? It was kind of like a
14. Is it 14 in 10? I think it is.
It's just he's just a different level. He's almost. If you look at his goal record, there are a few players in Europe that sort of get close to that goal a game. You obviously had Messi and Ronaldo have that period where they were consistently doing it. Lewandowski, I think Mbappe's had spells, but in terms of the major leagues, you really got those few, and I think you can put Haaland in that category. I think he will go close to getting a goal a game this season. And I think how City play at the moment, it's about create. So if you look at the distribution of goals for City, they're all Haaland is the absolute talisman of that team. I mean, I don't know who the second top scorer is for them, but I don't think they've got. Let's have a quick look. So second top scorer for City, they'll be on 2 goals. Gundogan,
Foden
Alvarez,
and Grealish,
Foden, Bernardo have all got 2. So he's dominating the goals that much that he's a freak of nature. For me, I can't see any argument not to captain him. I can't, and. I think Salah's it would just be a gamble. I could see Haaland getting a hat trick the weekend.
Wow,
just it would not be shocked at all.
I think in terms of a punt this week, I think I fancy Maddison to outscore Salah this week personally. I think that home game against Forest.
I like Maddison. I do like Maddison.
Obviously a punt, right? I'm not saying that I'm actually going to do it or would encourage anyone to do it, but if you are looking to play the game a bit differently. I do think Maddison can score really well on Monday night. I fancy him.
He's a decent vice captain shout, Maddison.
I agree. I just don't see the Salah love at the moment. I can't see anything apart from his historic record from African nations in his favour. Personally,
I think agree. And I think if you're looking at the numbers side of things. City are top for XG by far. They're getting pretty much 2+ a game. The majority of their XG. So if you look at the XG across the season, Haaland's 7.34. The next closest is about 1. I think De Bruyne's the next closest with 1.8. There's quite a few hovering about the 1.5. You look at big chances, he's had 14. The next closest is 3. So he's not only he's dominating the XG, he's dominating the chances for the best team in the country. And City, it doesn't matter who they play, they will create chances. In some respects, when they're going to play their strongest team on Sunday, so that's an even bigger plus. I don't think he can be stopped. So for me. He needs he needs to give me a reason to take the armband off him at the moment, and he hasn't yet. So,
talking of elite strikers, let's move on to Fergie as a punt for game week 9. So last week, I think it was quite lucky last week. I went for Ollie Watkins last week, and Ollie Poole, the editor at the Hub, who comments on my punt each week, was very nice. He said that whilst even though two of my last 3 have returned in the week, he says they do have a habit of returning immediately after. So I do think Watkins will
that'd be good. Take that.
So I will take that. I did have Visa and Brennan Johns, which I was quite pleased with. This week we've mentioned him a couple of times already.
Oh no,
I think, but
it's not going where I think it is it? Please say
well, Adam,
it.
I think your comment when you mentioned him was, "But I can't go there."
Okay.
So my punt this week, and he actually comes out in the Hub's Wildcard team for the next few weeks.
Okay.
So the algorithmic Wildcard team. Wait for it. He's had 1 appearance for his club this season. He did score in that appearance, 2 shots, 1 on target, low XG to be fair. Obviously, not much to kind of go on, but I am going for his form for his previous club and the fact that he started well for his new club. I'm going for Neil Mopai this week away to Southampton, 0.5% owned, very cheap. I think he'll return this weekend, but I do think this is not the last we'll see of Neil Mopai pre-World Cup.
How much is he?
Do you know what? That's the only thing I haven't.
6.1.
That's the only thing I haven't written down.
6.1.
That's the only thing I haven't written down.
Okay.
I think of all of the forwards, because I've talked about going down to a 4.5 or having Kane. For me, he's the best of the bad bunch. He'd be the one that I would go for if I had to go for. I like him. I think he's. I think particularly fixtures, particularly.
I think after game 12, 13 onwards. Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
They're good. It's just then it's potentially the threat of Calvert-Lewin, but he's been out. It seems like forever. I think he's a good option. I think he did well in the Merseyside derby, I thought, and then he was really involved. And he got his goal, didn't he, against West Ham? So. I think that's I think that's your best punt you've done this season. If I'm gonna,
thank you. I'm not sure that's a compliment or not, but I think we'll see.
I
think we'll see a massive Solanke to Mopais in about game week 13.
I think after this pod. I mean, what's the game week 12 fixture that Everton have got?
No, I think it's away to Newcastle, so it's not the best. Okay. They're home to Palace in 13, but I think after that, it's pretty good. Even the United game next week, United are the kind of team. Okay, they have improved, but they still concede, right? So, and he's a bit of a bully, isn't he? So, but yeah.
I think he suits. I think he's a very good signing for Everton. I think he suits.
He's very industrious.
What they're trying to do. Yeah, I think he's made them a better team. So, good shout.
Thank you, mate. Appreciate that. 0.5% owned. Yeah. Rich, we've now got your team up for game week 9. As you said, wow. I like this team. Really, really good team. Do you just want to talk us through it?
Quickly, what does it score in the Hub app, this team?
94%, I think, in terms of the game week. Oh, sorry, the overall rating, I think. And I think it was maybe 88, 89 just for the game week, because it's still a little bit forward thinking in terms of Sahara and stuff. But yeah, this is the wild card from last week. I'll be more than likely to be saving a transfer this week as well to have 2. I've got that one in the bag. I'll probably carry it through to game week 12 or just use it if I get a couple of injuries. But yeah, I'll have 2 frees next week on this. So Pope in goal, pretty template back 3 of Cancelo, James and Trippier, Foden, Martinelli, Maddison and Zaha across the middle, with Andreas first on the bench, and then up front, the trio that Adam and I have been talking about all evening: Haaland, Mitrovic, and Kane up front.
In that trio,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, so really pleased with it. I did really well last week, and hopefully it'll do really well this week. So yeah.
Any temptation to start Mings over Trippier?
Well,
or Iverson over Pope, either or.
Well, yeah, Iverson. If Iverson's going to play. Well, you could always do it, and then
exactly. Yeah. You don't need to
exactly. But Pope will come in if Ward plays. But yeah, I mean, I just can't. I can't really see Newcastle keeping a clean sheet at Fulham. I think Fulham will score.
Mitrovic got 4 goals, didn't he?
But they will have a lot. Yeah, they will have a lot of goal attempts, and so I think Pope will get 5 or 6 saves anyway. So I'd like to see Everson. Get the shirt and see how he does before I play him. But yeah, it's a good shout. You could definitely try it. I'm glad I bought him in over Ward on Wildcard.
I'm the same. Yeah. The Ward just throwing them in the net for fun, isn't he? Particularly Son's last one. Yeah, it's embarrassing. Exactly. I mean, Son should have been punished for not passing for Kane, and he's celebrating a hat trick. He did exactly what Foden did, but to Haaland, and he gets away with it because it's Ward. It's just
You know what? I do see that with Son. I've seen it with him this season more than any other. He seems to have got that greedy streak at the moment, and not in a way I like. Being a Spurs fan, there's been
not in a way I like as a Kane owner as well.
There's been a fair few occasions. I think he did it. I want to say game week 1 or 2, where he had a sideways 3-yard pass for Kane for an open goal tap in, and he went for it himself when he absolutely shouldn't have. And I've seen a lot more of him of that this season. I don't really like it. I don't want him to turn into that, like a Salah and Mane thing, or even, as you mentioned, like Foden and Haaland thing. I don't like it.
But now he's been dropped. He'll be scared of being dropped again, so he's probably liable to continue to behave selfishly.
Well,
so
I hope not, because that was he would have squared that last season without any shadow of a doubt, shouldn't he? But anyway,
to be fair, you're 1-on-1 for at Ward. You just hit the target, don't you? That's all you need to do.
On a hat trick,
target
on a hat trick.
Yeah, got to let him up.
Fantastic team, Rich. Really, really well set up. Very well played, sir. Adam, we now have your team as well. Do you want to talk us through it?
Yeah, well, this is the wildcard team I did last week, which is 97% in the Hub app.
I say.
This team this week is 91%.
Nice.
So we have Pope in goal. I'm gambling at the moment. I'm thinking of starting James Justin over Trippier. The reason being, in pretty much all of the review, in all of the forecasting sites, he's above Trippier, firstly. But also because I want Mitrovic to score, and I just think I might just gamble it. Leicester do need to win. They're going to have to do something defensively. I think they will change the goalkeeper. And I think, to be fair to Justin, he showed some attacking promise against Spurs. He's got a couple of assists this season.
A couple of seasons ago, Justin was a 9-pointer every week. He's amazing on bonus.
I had him.
Well.
He was gold for me.
He's brilliant
2 seasons ago.
Yeah. So I should caveat that with how bad Leicester have been defensively, but because I think Fulham will score, or want Fulham to score because I've got Mitrovic. I'm willing to take the gamble. I think I've then got James and Cancelo at the back. In midfield, I've got Maddison, Bowen, and then the Arsenal double up of Saka and Martinelli. And then I've got up front, I've got Kane, so I could really do the high score in North London derby, which is, I think, possible. And then I've got Mitrovic and Haaland captain.
Nice.
So, yeah,
You're gonna roll a transfer.
Yeah, as long as there's no surprise injuries from the team. But I think if there's one player out, I think I'd just bring Trippier in and save a transfer anyway. So yeah, and then bring in Zaha next week, and it's so really it's between Bowen and Saka of playing for their place in my team. So I'd hope that you might. I know what you're saying about Bowen, but I think the pressure of trying to stay on my team, I expect him to up his game.
Definitely,
so.
I completely agree with that. Yeah. The most important thing.
That's all that'll be bothering him. Not an England place. He'll be
quickly onto my team, quite similar in a lot of regards, apart from I've got a little bit of junk in the places where you two have got some good players. So Pope, Trippier, Cancelo and James would double up on Newcastle. Agree with you that it's not an ideal fixture this week, but I think the good thing about Pope and Trippier, they've got kind of multiple avenues to points. I think, assists, obviously, for Trippier. He hit the post or bar last week as well, didn't he? Pope gets really good save points as well. So I don't really mind it. I'm stuck on Ward.
Are you tempted to start Emerson at all? Because I know he didn't start versus Everton, but they've been disappointing. They've not been creating much.
No, because he had a 1-pointer last time. He came on the 89th minute.
He could get a 1-pointer, couldn't he? Yeah.
But if you think Newcastle are going to concede, I mean, Wolves at home, based on at the moment, he's right up there for getting a clean sheet. I would say.
I think he's guaranteed a 1-pointer regardless. And I also think the form West Ham are in, I could see Wolves winning that as well. Personally, I just think West Ham are just absolutely dire at the moment. I'm not saying that Boy won't score, West Ham won't score, but West Ham just look dire. I just got no interest in their players at the moment, so I put him in as a bit of a risk, because he was cheap. Because my kind of thinking was that if he does start, it's a real nice kind of enabler. If he doesn't start, he can just go kind of third on the bench every week. So I was happy with that. Obviously, with only 8 or 9 weeks until wildcard, so I'm happy with Trippier. I'm happy with him. I still think even at Fulham, I still think he'll get chances.
Yeah,
he's got a chance of a clean sheet, chance of assists. I'm happy with that. Midfield, De Bruyne, who I'm really happy with. Maddison, who I'm really happy with as well. And Martinelli. I have got Leon Bailey. who I was disappointed he didn't return last game week. But again, he's got Leeds this week and Forest the week after. Now, I have got the money in the bank to go straight from Bailey to Zaha, which was my plan. I think I'll probably leave it again this week. Just see how Bailey does this week. I'm not sure if he's going to start, obviously hoping he starts. He had 90 minutes, obviously, last time out, didn't score. Do you think he starts out in the next two?
I think the internationals might count against him. I think he was really bad against Southampton. The amount of times he gave the ball away. I mean, he was unlucky with that shot that went just past the post. But I don't think he had a great game.
Would you just go to Zaha this week or not?
No, I think I'd play.
What about moving him up to Sinistera based on what Al was saying?
I got the cash for Zaha. I'm definitely bringing Zaha next week. It's just whether I bring him in a week early.
I think I'd give him another game week. Okay. My only slight worry is I think Gerrard keeps the same formation, but he could be tempted because both Coutinho and Buendia haven't been away. Yeah. And we've actually had quite a lot of players stay at home for international duty. So maybe he's been working on something and maybe he'll give the players who haven't been away more game time. Yeah. But I think in your position, you give him one more game.
Or play Andreas.
I could do. Yeah.
I think there's more upside with Bailey. I would start Bailey. I think you've called it right.
I'll see. I'm not sure yet on what I'll do there. The problem is,
have you done the Solanke transfer?
No, I haven't.
Already,
I've just planned it in my team, which
has anything on this pod made you think I might not do it?
I think it's still my favorite sort of move. I think because I've lost Isaac and Dina, this is my problem. Is I don't want to play Andreas at home to Nuke. I don't think that's a good fixture for Andreas, really. I don't want to do that. I think that I'll be behind the curve because other people will be playing other very good shouts this week, and I'm basically on my bench. If Andreas was 5.5 or 6 million, he wouldn't be in my team. He's in there because he's 4.5. And don't get me wrong, he's returned well so far, but he's not one of my first choice players. It's just because I've lost Isaac and Luca Dean. I think the only thing why I'm not thinking of going for Solanke is I can't quite afford an easy switch to Trent from Luca Dean once I've done Bailey to Zaha. Now, if I did do Isaac down to a 4.5, I can then move back up from Luca Dean to Trent potentially next week or the week after. I'm in no rush to do that, really. I could even do it for a hit this week. If I did...
time against Brighton.
Yeah, if I did Solanke down to the 4.5 and I could do Dina straight up to Trent, that kind of it puts me in a 4-4-2. Still playing Bailey. I don't know if he's going to start or not. So I'm in a bit of a pickle. These injuries have buggered me up a little bit. Like the players who you guys got coming off your benches from last week, players like Justin and Zaha, I haven't got those. I've got injuries, so I'm a bit gutted with that. So I don't really want to take a hit first week back, but then I definitely don't want to be really because I was planning on benching Bailey this week. If obviously thinking that either one of Isaac would have been fit, for example. So I'm not 100% sure yet what I'm going to do. I need to give it a little bit more.
How much money have you got in the bank?
I've got 2.7 million. So
okay, to allow you to get Zaha in still,
exactly,
what would you be able to go to? What would you be? So Isaac was about 7, wasn't he? What could you go to and still get Zaha?
I've only got about Beta Zaha is like 0.2.
You could do Isaac to Tony, couldn't you?
I prefer Isaac to Tony.
I'm not bothered
definitely.
for that move. I'm not bothered for that move.
It's better than Solanke.
It's like, I mean, that's chalk and cheese.
Do you not think so?
Different level.
I could do it.
Yeah, I think Matthew's done that move.
Has he?
Our colleague. Yeah, he's not a bad player.
I think for me, I definitely think Tony is because it is about value. I get that, but then you got to play. You're playing them, aren't you? So if you've got the money in the bank, you may as well. And I think Tony's a better option.
And I suppose if I did it to Solanke, which then enabled the money to get to Trent, I think that's a decent argument. But even by moving to Solanke, that doesn't even give me the money to get to Trent, if that makes sense. So I think I think you guys are probably right. I love a differential as well. This is the problem, and I love getting on a player really nice and early. You know, they're home to Leicester next week as well. Then Fulham the week after. These three defenses, these next four defenses have been woeful. Whereas with Tony's, he's got Bournemouth this week, which is which is okay. But then I think they got Brighton and.
But you had him, didn't you? You had him for his hat trick, and then you sold him for your wild card.
I did, yeah.
It's just. I mean, he scored a hat trick. He scored a hat trick the other way. I can't see Solanke scoring a hat trick.
I mean, I think a best case scenario of Solanke I see is he maybe gets a couple of goals over the next 4 or 5 game weeks. And I can't see that.
Okay.
I just think. I think Bournemouth's squad and team is that far behind pretty much everyone else's from a creating chances attacking point of view. Yeah. Even if you look at the goal versus Newcastle, it was a bit of a smash and grab, really. And against Wolves, they hardly created anything.
Exactly. And Tony, another point on Tony, Ferg, is he got in the England squad, but then he didn't get a game. So if he's going to scrape into the World Cup squad, he needs a crack in 8 games, doesn't he? So
I've got a bit of confirmation bias here off FPL Scoped. Bournemouth have Brentford, Leicester and Fulham next 3 and not lost to anyone apart from City, Arsenal and Liverpool so far. I think the Bournemouth, they've had a tough run. I think they've had a really tough run, which is obviously reflected in their results, the defensive results, and in Solanke and the team's whole XG stuff. I don't know. I don't like Tony, and I know that sounds ridiculous saying that I want to go for Solanke, but I'm a fixtures man. I am a fixtures man, and I also think you can play into form. And I think if he gets a goal against Brentford, I would be over the moon owning him next week against Leicester, because Leicester, they may improve, but they're shipping. I think haven't they like broken the record or something for most goals conceded in the first however many games or something like that.
Yeah, but the key, they'll have a wall of a keeper in Everson.
Exactly.
This week. So.
Yeah, who hasn't played for however long. It was really good at Preston
since the League Cup, I think.
Yeah, someone in the chat. Where's Keenan Davis when you need him?
Where is Keenan Davis?
That's what you need at the moment.
Sorted.
It is a tough one.
Why don't you go for your punt? Go for your punt. Get him a paying.
No, it's fixtures. I'm fixtures all over. These next 4 fixtures, Solanke, are banging.
I think, if you are a fixtures, but that's the only, for me, that is the only plus side for this thing is the fixtures. The fixtures are very good.
And his age.
And if you are a fixtures player, his age, I still can't believe that. He's peak age. Like, I think the fixtures are good. He'll probably play 90 minutes. He is on penalties. But I just don't see them creating loads of chances. I think defensively they've improved and they've been in quite tight matches, but I don't see them creating much. So, but we know fixtures can be a catalyst to that. So I sort of get it, and I think if you're going to go for him, you go for it. It's a good week to punt on him.
I think even if he doesn't score this week and Tony does score this week, next week I think Brentford got Brighton. And then Bournemouth have got Leicester. And then the week after, Brentford have got Newcastle. Bournemouth have got Fulham. So it's not just like a 1 or 2 week thing. It's a bit of a longer term move.
I think for our listeners and viewers, I think you should go for it because it will create an interesting conversation over the next couple of weeks.
It will. See how he does, Yeah.
So
sacrifice his whole season for the sake of the listeners.
We've tried. He's fixtures. It's all fixtures. He's a good age. Solanke. I think he 20, 25 maybe. Good age. Go for him.
Okay. Competition time for our YouTube watchers. Firstly, Game Week 8 winner, Heung-min Son, 19-pointer. Unbelievable. Who would have thought that at, 4:15 on Saturday or whenever it was. We did have a winner, regular listener actually, Martin Beasley. Very well picked out, Martin. Superb stuff. You have won a hug. You've won a hug. If you DM me, I'll come and give you a hug. You've won a mug, which is over Rich's shoulder, which he's proudly showing off now. And for this week's competition and a chance to win one of our fantastic Fantasy Football Hub mugs, you need to like this video. Make sure you press like, make sure you are subscribed, and then comment on who will be the top point scorer for game week 9. Don't forget, you be one of these fantastic mugs, and they really are bloody fantastic, if I say so myself. Adam, who is your pick this week for top scorer? Obviously can't go for any of the obvious picks.
No, of course. I think the player I'm thinking of, he's got incredible fixture. He is England capped, got a great goal scoring record last season in particular. He's had about 8 shots this season. I've got to go for him. He's peak age, Dominic Solanke.
You're jinxing me. You're jinxing. You're
well, I think that's it.
You're hedging your bet, so you can say next week. Well,
exactly.
Said,
smart thing to do.
Absolutely.
I can say, come on, I did pick him for top scorer.
Lovely hair as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Rich, who's your pick for this week?
Okay, yeah, just sort of somebody. Got about 4 or 5 double-digit hauls in the last third of last season. James Maddison.
Yeah, I think
against Forest.
I think Maddison would be my pick.
Yeah.
Right shout.
I like to try and go a bit left field. So I do like. I really struggled. I was looking at Leicester to try and for my Fergie as a punt pick, but there's so much uncertainty about who's going to play. But I am going to hang my hat, and I'm going to say that I think that Daka has performed well. I think
Like that
he's
shout.
started the last 2, and I think if he does start and gets good minutes, I think he could score a couple of goals. So I'm going to go for him.
And hopefully assisted by Mr. Justin. That would be great if it could be.
Good, yeah. And as long as Maddison gets something as well.
Exactly, yeah.
Carl Roll has also gone for Daka, as has FPL Swanson. Craggick has gone for Son. Kenneth Sim said Barnes. He said he wants that hug.
Barnes is a good shout.
Yeah, I was thinking
really
about. He just haven't.
Him, but I think Barnes.
Just haven't really looked on it this season, has he? Lots of Leicester.
The only thing
picks.
that puts me off Barnes, I have seen a lot of not Forest fans, Leicester fans talking about going 3 at the back.
Okay,
and he doesn't quite fit into that formation.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
That's fair. And that is it from us for this week. Thank you so much for everyone who joined in the chat. Those who will watch it back, and to those listening on the podcast version, your support, as usual, is very, very much appreciated. We do know that these last 2 episodes have been pretty long. They were kind of wildcard specials. We're back to normal length next week, but thank you very much for being with us. Hopefully you've enjoyed. Just a reminder, we showed our teams using our My Team feature, which is now live to use yourself to pick, plan and optimize your FPL team on fantasyfootballhub.co.uk, and our new community feature is also now live. If you haven't downloaded the Fantasy Football Hub app, make sure you do. We have got community feature now, which is for FPL, Sky Fantasy, TFF, Sun Dream Team, anything you want. So it's a really, really good new feature now. There is still, I think only for the next 2 days, until the end of the month, 30% off Fantasy Football Hub membership. If you haven't joined, make sure you do it now because the discount will be gone in a couple of days. You can still get on 30% off. Click the link in the description below. Adam, thank you so much for joining me.
No, thank you.
Where can people get hold of you?
On Twitter, the handle is @Hopta Stats.
Lovely stuff. Thank you. And Rich, thank you so much. Where can people get hold of you?
I'm on @Rich Clarke FPL on Twitter too.
Superb. My Twitter handle is @FFH_Fergie. So this podcast and video will be on the Fantasy Football Hub YouTube channel, with the podcast versions available on all major podcast platforms, hopefully with good audio. If you like what you watched, please press the like button. Remember to subscribe to the channel at the bottom right corner of the screen. If you enjoyed your listen, please rate the podcast and leave a comment. Don't forget, Rich, currently ranked at 338k, exclusively reveals his team ahead of the deadline for Fantasy Football Hub members. We'll be back at the usual time of 5:30 p.m. BST next Thursday. Rich is away, so we will have a guest next week. We'll be previewing Game Week 10. Have a great Game Week 9, and may all your arrows be green. Goodbye for now.